previous chapter, we created our parent material shader, which gives us this like red dot thingy. If you don't have this yet and you're trying to create this portal, which is what this entire educational series is about, then head back to the previous chapters and catch up. But if you're at this stage, the next thing that we need to do is create some Substance Designer textures, two to be precise, in order to get us this blue visual the way we see it here. It's going to be two textures because with the first one I pull off the blue, the red and the yellow. I just changed the colors and the mapping of my initial texture, bluish one that I create in Substance Designer that we'll make in this episode. And I accomplished all three visuals, but this fourth one where I was like I want all of the colors, I actually made a rainbow texture straight into Designer, so we'll make one like that as well. The result will be this is the first one that I mentioned, and then the rainbow texture that we'll use is this one. And these are tiling noises, so you can actually reuse them in kind of cool ways in other projects or other things that you're doing. So let me head back to where we usually are, over here. So I want to mention that these textures that we're making and the knowledge of what we're doing now in Designer, if you really like them and you want to use them for something completely different than what we're making now, then stick around and we shall learn a few quick things in Designer. We are in Substance Designer 2021, that is the version that I have. In there we have everything necessary in order to do the pieces that we want. You can do it with a newer version. You could probably even pull it off with another one as well. We go File, New, Substance Graph. I want an empty one to be fair, and I'll just go with Noise. Because I'm creating tiling noises, that is what I'm making here. For K, not really. I'm thinking, or yeah, let's start some of the nodes as 4K so we can actually follow what I've previously done without a mistake. And then in the final node, I'll show you how I actually sample them down to 1K, because 4K is quite frankly unnecessary for the type of VFX that we do. If you want, keep yours at 4K. I personally made mine to 1K because all of my work goes into my GitHub, and there's a giant difference between a 4K and a 1K texture file size wise, and I don't want to fill my LFS with needlessly large stuff. Cool. So in here we begin by right clicking and then add node, or just spacebar and then clouds, and I really want clouds 3. Next, I drag and I say transform 2D, and you know how our effect here, let's go back to it really quickly. You know how in these, like in the material that I've made over here, there are these lines, right? Like these kind of like watery lines. In order to accomplish them, I got these clouds, and then here I feed it to transform, and that transform on the width I put 200, okay? And I pressed once and it distorted it once. I'm gonna press it again to go even further, and then again, and I believe, I'm looking at my reference of what I've done, I believe these 3 times that I pressed it, that gets me to it being like super long the way I want it, which is perfect. Next up, we drag levels. And for levels, I used the following settings. I kept it as it is, and my lower end, this black bar here, I really dragged in to get me like to this peak over there, okay? And then I drag this one back to this. Like if you keep it to relatively similar values, you will accomplish the effect that I have, which is lovely. Cool. Next up, I do a slope blur grayscale, okay? And this levels goes into top slope blur, while below I want another clouds tree, so I can either like drag it or I can just like do that, okay? And in the samples, I want to increase it to 32. In the blur amount, here it says 10. I want something really gentle, 0.24. Cool, we get this effect. I can, by the way, click on this and it kind of like showcases me the entire result, which is really cool. So yeah, the tiling a bit imperfect, but we don't care. In this case, we broke it when we did this move, by the way. Before that, you can see that it perfectly tiles. It doesn't bother us because, well, we blurred it a bit, so it's not nearly as bad. And then we kind of like do things to it in the material in here. So it gets us to this. We like it. So next up, we want to add blur high quality grayscale. And this is the step where in my own work, I give it like -2 here and here, which made it from 4K to 2K. If you really think that this 4K actually adds much, which I assure you it doesn't, because this is like a really kind of like blurry VFX we're making, so 4K is really an overkill, but if you want, keep the 1K. I would actually say that if you want identical visual to mine, you should probably go for 1K, because you can see how it slightly changes in appearance there. Well, no, not really actually, it changes in appearance because the intensity is too high. Let's put 0.66 here and 1 on quality. And yeah, you can see that relatively similar visual. Well, obviously we're blurring it, but yeah, up to you to decide whether you want it 4K or 1K. Next up, we want to drag a gradient map. That is what is going to give it the colors that we want. And now this is going to be a bit of a tricky part, but essentially off screen I have these are the colors that I went for, and you want to keep it to color here, and then in the gradient editor open this up. I don't think I have an easy way to do it, you probably don't either. Maybe I'll drag this onto the side screen and then I'll do big gradient and I'll test it. No, like it kind of like produced something different than what I have. Very similar actually. No, actually nearly perfectly similar. Maybe too many colors in some spots, but yeah, I kind of like that. So let's simplify it though. So you saw the colors, let's build it up by hand. So we start at the very bottom and we pick a color that is like, so we start by adding a node to the very bottom, and for it we go with this color. Like you probably are best off to like put a similar color by perception. I think it will look nearly similar. Or if you want to be very precise, copy my hex as seen over here. Next up, we click relatively there and we go with this color. I'll speed up by this process, by the way, and you can pause and go back and forth. Another one, and we go with that, which actually is kind of like same as before. Another one around there, pick this. Okay, and I think it's a bit hard to see on my other one, but I think I want to copy that. No, I want to like move that there. See what I did like right there? Like it's gonna be two between one another. Move that there, this here, and this here. Add another one here, and pick this color. Add another one here. Pick that. That's lots of fun. Here we pick this. Here we pick that. Over there we go with this one. And then we really move it in here. We're going for that like deep sea blue. Pick and go with that turquoise, or that teal color. Pick again and go with a really light one. And that light one really push there. Add another one and pick this, another one, and pick more away from green and more towards blue. Next up, we pick these, okay, and then it's raining outside and I hope my microphone doesn't go crazy. Well, it's raining crazy much, so sorry if there's noise from here on. Okay, so we pick this and we pick like color like that. These colors here are now like starting to be incredibly similar. so don't worry too much if you don't get them exactly the same. I'm gonna like kind of move them in like this. Okay, cool. And this white, we're gonna preserve similar one, but like not absolutely white. I'll lower it like that, and I'm going to hit there and finally add one color like so. And I think that's it kind of done. Okay, so you can see the difference. I can assure you that it's probably gonna be fine, really. But I think like you end up with a visual really similar to the other thing. But like, let's see what we can do to so like lower that. I think all of these need a bit of pushing. Yes. Move them in. Keep that. I think this side is correct. We just happen to have like a slightly different like seed by the look of it, which gives it the shapes. I'm sure that's not a problem either, as like you get. I actually think our current version has a bit more detail, which is a bit more interesting. So tell you what, I'll roll with it, and I think you'll see that it actually is pretty cool, and there's no problem with it. So yeah, hopefully you managed to pick these colors. Let's close that and save. I haven't saved it all, so let's make it curves. Next step, I need to like make you aware of one important thing. This is going to be used as a base color in Unreal, which means that this will have a material type. Let me show you. A material type here that is texture group world. It won't be like anything else, it will be world. And more importantly, compression type will be default BC1. And the sRGB is on. And when you have these settings, it kind of like predicts that it's indeed going to be used as some sort of base color. It means that you cannot have 16 bits per channel on the RGB here. The C16 kind of indicates that. Because if you do have 16 and you import this in Unreal, it will not error, but like it will make it look washed out, and we don't want it like overly washed out. So we want to convert it to C8, and I do that by doing transform 2D, then not changing anything, and here saying absolute and then saying 8 bits. See, like the appearance didn't change at all, and then we got to that. So it's important to note that when you are exporting things. That being said though, in order to accomplish exactly this type of like effect here, this water effect, I did take one final step and I made it slightly washed out, like you can see there. So let's go in here and let's do levels. And then in that levels, we want to move the luminance down like that to just like ever so slightly washed out. There we go. And now that I kind of like, but you need to be aware of like this entire C8 thing, because the next texture that we make that will be rainbow, you might end up with the colors not looking like what we want at all. So we spacebar and we say output to add us an output. And for its settings, well, first I want to name it something sensible. The identifier I want to be text for texture, and then let's see like water. No, because like it's never gonna be really used as water, so let's not confuse ourselves or any other artists that might be using our project. Imagine that this was like a big project. Let's say just liquid color blue. Cool, I like that as a name. And view output in 2D and then hook that into that and it immediately appears. For the settings, we are going to add item and it's going to be RGBA, base color, and then sRGB. The other settings we leave as they are, like maybe this to that. And we save that. Cool. That's the texture done for that. And it will be useful in this. And it will be useful in this, but let's make the texture for that, because I will, by the end of the tutorial when we're making blueprints, also show you how to make this thingy where like you can change them dynamically like this. And maybe you like the rainbow just as much as I do as well. So let's have that too. Cool. So we start by introducing spacebar gradient linear 1. Then we go with gradient map color. And then we go into the editor and we start with purple. I'm going to be picking them off the side of my screen. You can copy these hexes, as I was saying. And let's try to keep them relatively similar step. On this step, we go blue. And we can zoom out here to be seeing what we're doing, by the way. Then we go another step. And on this step, by the way, we want to again keep it to like this blue that we have there. And changed by default, so we're gonna click again and paste it. Here I'm gonna hold shift. No, so I'm holding control and dragging and it gives me that. And I do this in order to define a line more in a better way, really. Okay. Then here I'm going to click and add us green. Then I'm going to hold down control and drag for another green. I will double click here and I will pick yellow, drag another yellow. I will click here and pick orange and drag another orange, pick here, then go red and then hold out to drag another red. This I select and I press del to remove and I move it here. And look at that, that is sweet as heck. Maybe we can select both of these and move them here, and there, there. Just like clean up. It doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be relatively, when you look at it, similar amount of steps. I'm liking it, so we close that, and with that we have our initial rainbow built. And now I want to make like these swirly noises that actually aid it in order to make the entire interesting visual that we have here. Like you can maybe see like these spikes and this liquid like spill. I think it's very cool. So we want to replicate some of that. So we add spacebar and then clouds 2. Okay. And this we drag into a slope blur color. We input for slope the clouds that we just made, and look at that, it makes like this pastel thingy. It's like really cool stuff. You can experiment with things and make your own version later on, but for now, if you want to keep to mine, like my settings. And for this we go really small amount, like I believe it's like 5.2 or so. Cool. Then we want to add creased as like another noise. Here, by the way, we want to change the scale of the clouds to 2. Okay, gives us that. And on the creased, we want to keep it to 1.1 and then 0.12. So warp 0.25 as a warp. We don't want to change anything. Copy that slow blur and place it there. The top goes in here. The creased goes in here. And then for the settings of this slope, we are going to go small amount of samples, and look at that. Ooh, just yum. And then 954. And look at that. Oh my god. I absolutely love this spill. And you can change your gradient, by the way, to like different stuff if you want as well. And it's just gonna make like such cool stuff. It's just amazing. And then remember what I said about we want to preserve the colors as saturated as they are. If we export C16, it will be a problem. So let's do transform 2D, and then in that transform, say output format absolute and then 8. And there we go, that fixes it for us. I also want to, in here, change it to be -2 output size. And that way it scales it down to 1K because I don't want giant things on my GitHub. And then this we're gonna copy and place it here. And we're gonna change it to text. And then I'll call it noise rainbow A. Like I usually go for A, for example, because like next I might make some different version of it or different color, and then I'll call it like B. And that way it works perfect for me. And that's our two textures done. So we save, and then we right click here and we say export outputs as bitmaps. We leave everything here as it is. So I'm going to do PNGs because again, PNGs are a bit more portable than Targa, for example, and I am operating on limited space on my GitHub. But if you want like truest, like high quality and good practices we do in game dev, for example at Rebellion, our textures are always set to TGA. So if you wish, export yours to TGA as well. In this case, I'll just keep them to PNG as they were. By the way, TGA, the True Vision Targa, is superior to some of the others because say we were doing JPEG. If we were doing JPEG and we were exporting normal maps, it will actually create artifacts on the normal map gradients, which operate in a different color space than this stuff here, and then you could have trouble. So I wouldn't export PNG or JPEG normal maps, for example. I would stick to Targa, so that's just the better practice. But in this case, yeah, base colors and like it doesn't really matter that much, so I will export them as so. And then, yeah, in the tooth graphs folder, export outputs, which is wonderful. And then I'm looking on my side screen to find them for you, so you can actually see them. Yep. So there we go. We made this. And we made that. And with that done, the portion of our work that is in Designer in order to accomplish this type of stuff is done. And that will be it with this episode where we just covered Substance Designer. In the next one, we shall return to working in Unreal. Thank you, until next time. And then it's raining outside and I hope my microphone doesn't go crazy. Well, it's raining crazy much, so sorry if there's noise from here on.